Welcome to Wise Women's Stories, a podcast where we dive deep into the essence of womanhood, intuition, transformation, and becoming. I'm Edwina Murphy-Droomer, and rather than skimming the surface, we're here to unravel the true essence of womanhood and the layers that shape and define us. We invite you as you enter this sacred space to take a moment of solitude with just your thoughts, a comfortable chair, a warm cup of tea, and your journal.
And I'm Inarra Aryane Griffyn. Together we explore the journeys of women who have weathered decades of highs and lows and are now poised to discover deeper mysteries and mastery on their personal development journey. In each episode, we invite you to join us as we work to help you uncover honest insights and share profound stories that empower women to embrace their most authentic, wild, natural selves.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode where we are initiating the intuition, working with the 9 tasks. I nearly said 7 tasks. We're up to task 7 tonight. Working with the 9 tasks in alignment with the story of Vasilisa in Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estés. So welcome back. I'm here with Inarra. I often forget that people aren't watching us because we record this on video, so we're looking at ourselves, but then I have to remind myself that it's on audio as well. So of course Inarra is with us. Hello, Inarra.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, everybody.
So as I said, we are diving into the 7th task, which is asking the mysteries. And this is what I would love to encourage the listeners to do, is to keep the word questioning front and center in your mind, because we can get very stuck in things appearing solid, but they're not necessarily solid. And that hopefully that'll sound a little bit mysterious, but as we speak through this, you'll get a sense of what I mean by that. So as I like to do, I want to read just the first little bit from in Clarissa's words to ground us in the task that she wants us to go through for this particular section of the training. So questioning and trying to learn more about the life, death, life, nature, and how it functions. So Vasilisa asks about the horsemen. Learning the truth about being able to understand all the elements of the wild nature, to know too much can make one old too soon. We all begin with a question: what am I really? What is my work here? And the Yaga teaches us that we are life, death, life, that this is our cycle, this is our special insight into the deep feminine. So one of the things that is quite prevalent in the story of Vasilisa is the use of the colors of black, white, and red. And we see it in the black horseman that's wearing all black, and the red horseman that's wearing all red with the red horse, and the white horseman wearing all white with a white horse. And obviously this creates questioning. What is this all about? And it is one of the questions that Vasilisa asks Baba Yaga. And she explains it in the red is the drawing the day up as the red comes up, as the sun rises, and then the white is the day and the night is the darkening. But it's really interesting to think about these colors in terms of not, there's not one is good and one is bad and one is right and one is wrong. It's, life and death are not, it's not a question of good and bad, or something that we want and something that we don't want, because there is life and death within black, and there's life and death within red, and there's life and death within white. So I feel like this opens up a fantastic opportunity to look at all sorts of different areas of our lives. But as I, just open this first part of the conversation, Inarra, what came to your mind as you were reading this chapter?
Well, something quite personal, which that tomorrow I'm having my cat put to sleep.
Mm,
And that when I had, this is 3 cats in 2 months that I'm having put to sleep.
mm,
I can just about talk about it without getting completely emotional at this point. I've had lots of tears, but I am prepared for this.
yeah.
And part of it is that when I got them as kittens, I knew there would be a leaving at the same
Mm,
time. Not necessarily within 2 months. That was a bit of a shocker to me. But they made it to 17. And there's this incredible beauty in knowing that I have looked after these animals. They've had the best lives ever. And then I've been the death doula to them. And I
mm,
really, and who comes along is the Pali vet. She's an amazing woman. And I did say to her, with the first cat, Pandora, who was put to sleep in the garden after a beautiful day, this woman is like a magical
mm,
being. She comes in and she does some of the hardest work for anybody. She
yeah.
sees people upset. I didn't even offer a cup of tea because I
Yeah.
was so in the moment of this, there was nothing normal about it. And I did say to her, your work is amazing. And she
Yeah.
said, I'm so glad that you can see that, because for a lot of people, they just see me as the sort of end of life. But I'm
Yeah.
like, it's such a beautiful ending. It's such a beautiful
Mm,
cycle. And when the last goes tomorrow, Phoenix, Panther, Griffin, I have a certain freedom that comes with it. It's like been a 17-year stage. It's not kids like you've had, it's cats, the
mm,
mother of cats. But it is 17 years I've been in this cycle of looking after them. And then there's the next beautiful cycle, which means I can travel. I'm not going to get replace cats immediately. I will again,
mm.
but there'll be a space of me. It's
Yeah.
all about me stepping into travel and things where I don't need to worry so much about my babies at home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I haven't talked a lot about the death of my sister. So my sister died at 49 in 2018, and I actually found her. She died very suddenly of a brain aneurysm. So I'd seen her 4 days before on my birthday, and she was perfectly fine. She's not on any medications. There was nothing. And it was one of the great lessons in my life, as so often come from the most horrific experiences. But I am so, um, if and when I am in that position ever again in dealing with the death of a loved one, I will approach it very differently. I was so ill prepared, and I think about and this life death life has come up through multiple tasks within this book, within the tasks that we've been doing. And I think about in European cultures and in older cultures and in cultures where they spend time with the body after the person's died, and the handling of the body and the washing of the body, and like there's these rituals that are so important, and we can look at those rituals in when new life arrives in birth as well. These life and death rituals have been sterilized and we're removed from it. So the desire to not be involved in any of what is seen as the hard parts or the messy parts, or it's like, if I can just leave my dog with you and you get put it down and deal with it, and then we'll scatter the ashes. And it's like being removed from any of that process, I think, is very damaging to our psyches, and probably why a lot of people um, struggle greatly in processing um, the death of, whether it's animals or the death of loved ones, people we know. But it is, I think it's part of this whole picture of sterilizing and being removed from these natural cycles in our lives. So I'm very glad that you have somebody coming to you, the long and the short of
Not
this.
only that, I've got
Mm,
what's so amazing is the people who have been moved and touched by these animals, particularly.
mm,
So I've got somebody who wants to be on video from Bali which is a very different time zone to London, to witness and be there for the whole of
Wow.
Panther's exit.
Yeah.
I've got a friend coming from Manchester. He's coming down today to stay with me for 4 days because he was so close to Panther. And we're going to light a big fire tomorrow.
Mm.
We're doing rituals. This is like a massive honoring of a cycle
Yeah.
of mine as well. And so
Yeah.
there will be a celebration of life, a party, but he will, I feel so good that he will be on my lap when
Yeah.
he dies, and
Yeah.
he'll be buried in the garden. And
Yeah.
it's like that's tomorrow. And I have
Mm.
to say as well that I've sat through my ex-husband, who when I left him, we're really good friends. But
Mm.
when I left him, I said, I'm divorcing you and I'm not divorcing your mother. I want your mother in my life forever because we were so close.
Yeah.
I sat through her death as well. And a few years ago, and it was just so profoundly beautiful. It was
Mm.
this energy. When I walked in the room, she said, "Oh, sweet Inara." That's all she ever said to me. That was the thing. And then she went into a kind of coma state, and he was holding her head for hours, like long time, thinking that was very helpful. And there was one point where she raised herself out of the coma and said, "Don't hold my head. I can't leave. I can't
Mm.
leave." And then went straight back into the coma. And it was like, oh, instructions. We got directions
Yeah.
actually about how this is done. And that, holding too closely to the body, to the form, thinking that that is the thing. Actually, no, of course, it's the energy, it's the essence that's leaving. And she couldn't leave. She was being pulled in.
Wow.
So yeah, he let go and she let go too. It was amazing.
Literally.
Literally.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, death doesn't have to be a ghastly thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's emotional and people don't want to show emotions, but if you can just ride with the emotions of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
pull your eyes out, do rituals. Ritual is my answer to everything, really. It's
Yeah.
ceremony, honoring, you know.
Well, we don't want to show it because it's messy, but more beyond that, we don't want to feel it. So we do things to
Yeah.
try and avoid the feeling. But the more that we can feel the feeling, the more the emotion can move in a healthy way through us. But these things take time and maturity and role modeling,
Yeah.
which is one of the big things that comes from sharing these stories. It's very helpful. I wish I had have had people that shared these stories with me before I had that experience with my sister. It would
Yeah.
have made a massive difference. But as you know, we're talking about the literal death of our animals and people in our lives, but there's also this cyclical nature of the death of periods in our lives, of ways of being, of careers, of, for me it's been, the end of a chapter in mothering for me. It can be in a relationship breakdown. There's all these different things that happen in our lives that we can look at in this sort of cyclical nature as well, in a very healthy way, because when we can see, we can use the colors of black, red and white to look at it, to see the different stages we're at, and to see that it's actually the healthy movement of emotion, the healthy dealing of these different level parts of our psyche, as we are going through these different stages. And I think it's, when we can look at it like that rather than as something, labeling it as good or bad, it makes the transitioning from the uncomfortable to a more comfortable place a healthier journey. So perhaps if we think about it from that perspective, is there a story that comes to you particularly in a chapter in your
Well,
life?
yes, and I think one of the things that we can always do with a space, and I would say this to the listener right now, if you just shut your eyes for a moment and you just ask yourself, where am I in a cycle? Is this a death cycle? Is it middle cycle? Is it being born cycle? And you'll get answers to that very clearly. So what shows up is cycles of life that this is all about the mysteries. And the mysteries are a feminine energetic. So mastery is the masculine, the doing, the creation. Mystery is also creation in a different way. And it's surrendering, allowing, receiving. And you will know that there's a moment where something is ending. So in my own life right now, I've got Panther Griffin going, and I've got my father has had a very bad fall, one of many now. So there's a big stage of change in that. There's something that I felt at the beginning of this year, which was, I couldn't even put a tangible word on it, that there was a shift happening in my business. And I just wanted something else. And we've talking about that. And, it's basically, if you try and figure it out in those moments of the great mystery, you will not be able to figure it out. You'll be doing what the corporate culture teaches us to do: push hard, grind away. Just another hour's worth of work will get you figured out. Wrong. It's the opposite. It's like, need to detach, step into spaces that will give you a resonance of the mystery. So that will be nature, often going to nature, silence, places of great beauty, sunsets, go witness the sunset and break out of the routine and receive. And what happens in those moments are incredible redirections.
Yeah.
The nudging of a different way. And so the story really is of this podcast. And I would just say that I knew for 2 years I wanted to do a podcast. It was this little, and I was curious, and I kept thinking on all these businessy levels, it was like, oh, there's marketing, there's this and that. You build your own audience. That was the practical masculine happening. And then I went and did several courses. So I was like, getting ready for something, but I had no idea what the thing was. And then through a series of events this year, one of the massive astrological event that's happened, and we are in 2024, I've mentioned this to you before, that there was a solar eclipse, it marks the beginning of a 19-year new cycle for everybody on the planet. It's one of those things that we will have felt that something has happened. That was the end of April. And I started talking a little bit about podcasts. That was it. I then decided to run a kind of course about it. You have some random conversation with me about it. The next thing I know, and I still can't figure out how that happened. It was like, oh, we're doing this podcast like that. And we learned all the tech. We did all the business. I've followed something that I've learned. And voila, we launched yesterday. And we haven't looked at the pure figures on this, but we're 8th in Australia in self-improvement.
Self-improvement,
24 hours. Yeah. And that's the mystery right there. It's like not having to figure out, just feeling those energies that swirl around you, and we swirled around each other. But it was so easy. That's creation in the mysteries. Yeah.
Yes. I've got to remember it's not everyone's on video once again. They can't see my face, the big grin.
Yeah, big grins. We're proud of each other, proud of ourselves.
Yeah. So let me go back and pull out a couple more bits from that Clarissa really wants us to focus on for this task. So I don't know if you know how to pronounce T-U-Z, Tuz. It's got the 2 little dots above, which I think is French. But anyway, it's soul fire is the essence of it. And the infusion of soul fire into our own ideas, our own lives, and the lives of those we touch, that is our work. So this is going back to the life, death, life mother. and what we do with our time. So physically, the mother, the Baba Yaga, the wild woman represents different pictures, different ages, moods, and aspects of the wild mother god. And her job, her role is the infusion of soul fire into our own ideas, our own lives, the lives of those we touch. And that is our work. The shoeing of the soul into its home, that is our work. I love those words. I feel like I want to write that up on my fridge or something.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
shoeing of the soul into its home, the releasing of a shower of sparks to fill the day, and creating a light so we can find our way through the night. That is our work. And this podcast is part of that. It's this opening up of a conversation and planting new ideas into the minds of people. And it's like, what is this? What are these parts? What is the red and black and white mean to you when you think of the life cycles in your own life? So even as you listen to us, you can draw in our stories and our reflections. But more importantly than that is to think about these things in relation to your own lives. So the black, red, and white horsemen symbolize the ancient colors connoting birth, life, and death. These colors also represent old ideas of descent, death, and rebirth. Black for dissolving of one's old values, the red for the sacrifice of one's precious held illusions, and the white as the new light, the new knowing that comes from having experienced the first two. Without the symbols of daybreak, rising light, and mysterious dark, she would not be who she is. And I think about this in, like when we think about these periods of dark and the periods where we sort of cocoon and feel like we are in an uncertainty of what's coming next, the death of something before the rebirth of something new. For those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, it's this, we're in this physical winter at the moment, but spring is coming. And there's always that way of looking at our energies in tune with the natural world, in tune with the natural cycles of things. It's like, it's okay to be in a period of dormancy. It's okay to be in this period. I don't know what's next. I don't know quite what's coming, but there is that connection to trust and faith that the red is coming. The sun will rise again. The new energy, the new life, the new soul fire will rise up again if we give it space to come. So when I think about this, I've got a new photo shoot coming in September that I was talking to Inarra about. And it's like for photo shoots for me I do them every couple of years. And they are one of my greatest loves. It's this sort of very creative project of self-expression, and the careful choosing of clothes and the honoring of my hair and my skin and my health and having everything in the best possible condition. It's like getting ready for a wedding. It's my idea of absolute fun. It's such a creative outlet for me. And so it is, for anybody, I, invite people that are listening to think about this. There's nothing stopping you from creating. If you feel like you want to create a new version of you or bring out a previously tucked away idea of how you would like to express yourself in the world, you can start creating a Pinterest board. And, just it doesn't need to be shared with anybody else until you're ready. But what are the clothes you would wear? What's your optimal health? What is that rising soul fire energy? What does that bring forward? And, for me, I love to look at people that really inspire me. And one of those women died this year at 102 was Iris Apfel. I don't know if you know who Iris was. She's an extraordinary woman, but very, very, very flamboyant, and wore, she actually did a Barbie theme is coming up in Ara again. They created a Barbie doll of her, but she always wore these great big heavy black glasses and very flamboyant
Oh,
clothes.
I
And
think I do know her. And
yeah,
she's a much older woman with,
yeah,
she looks like she should be a New Yorker, but I don't know
yeah.
if she is. Is she?
Well, I'm actually not sure where she's from, but
Yeah.
she's 102. She died this year and she's just fabulous. She's one of
Amazing.
the women that I look at and just go, looking at you makes me happy. And
Yeah.
so I want to do that for other people, like the way that I express myself and the clothes that I wear. And, that's something that gives me great joy. So, what are the things as a listener that that are possibly that soul fire rising for you, the red, the passion? Um, it's an invitation to think about that and to create a project for yourself that might bring that forward. What are
And
some of your
I would, sorry to
no
interrupt.
no
It's so
go
hard on podcasts to not interrupt, but when you're excited. But
yep
it occurs to me that the idea as well that we often look at our lives as a kind of mundane routine, like we should do
mm,
this and we ought to do that, and then we
mm,
have to do this. But when you tap into your soul energy, like
mm,
what's emanating through you? What did you come here to do?
yeah
And it may not ever, like, it's the kind of thing that I always think from the perspective of when I die, I want to have X, Y, and Z at it. And it's like, it gets you to be audacious when you think from that
mm,
perspective, when you think from the soul level. I need to express, what is
yeah
that self expression? And for you, it's right now, it's going up a notch in glamour. We were
mm,
just talking about this.
mm,
And you were like, well, I'm not sure if it was me and all of that. Well, if not you, then who? It's
yeah
got to be. And that's the
yeah
soul energy coming through, not
yeah
dictated by a season of work or a season of, the ordinary. No, it's like
yeah
that level of expression that you can
mm,
tap into.
mm.
You're here to be that.
Yeah. And it is trusting that intuitive calling. It's so easy to make things wrong or to label or to create a story around something that's not for me. So whether that is, I would love to write a book, but I know that's not for me. Well, if you've got a calling in you to write a book, or I would love to travel the globe, or I would love to, there are so many love tos that your soul is calling forward that is nourishment for that soul fire. But our minds that have been trained by an environment to be sensible, don't be silly, don't be, too big for your boots, don't be this, don't be that, shuts it down. So if you find a space where you can shut down the the logical brain, get rid of the logical brain and just listen to that soul fire voice. What is that thing that just brings you to life, that thing that is calling forward? Because I promise there is that amazing sense of aliveness that comes when you listen to that part of your intuition. Mm.
It's a theme that comes up a lot for me and my clients, or
Yep.
for my clients with me, um, that they often are teetering on something which is a version of success, which they
Mm.
already have. They're quite successful. I tend to speak to leaders, and they
Yep.
can be leaders behind, within, or in front of. So it's not one version of leaders, but they tend to be leaders of a certain ilk.
Mm.
And the most common conversation that we have is that they've got all these things like notches to the belt. They're firing on all cylinders. They've got
Mm.
money. They've got whatever. And then there's this big, massive piece of
Mm.
burnout that's going, which is because they've been sitting in the masculine
Yeah.
only, burning out. And then what happens in the conversation is there'll be this thing, and I see them. How I know we're onto the thing is because their face lights up. The
Mhm.
minute
Mhm.
I tap into that conversation and their face lights up, and
Yep.
then they start speaking like little girls, and they're like, woo, all of this. And then what I often say is, well, that's totally feasible as a business. And they're like,
Mm.
oh, yeah, yeah, because it's not the
Yeah.
paycheck at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, no, this has legs. I listen
Yeah.
to entrepreneurs all the time. When I give them that moment of permission,
Mhm.
it's quite amazing, the response. It's like somebody actually saw them, heard them, or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And then we go work out how the thing that lights them up has
Mm.
legs. Now, ideally, as you progress, that's the thing you want to be doing.
Yeah.
It's not the death by corporate paycheck,
Mm.
or the security that will keep you so safe and unexpressed.
Yeah.
It's this little sparkly thing, and that's the
Yeah.
daring. That's
Yeah.
the ooh, what do you
Yeah.
dare do?
Yeah.
So there's quite a few of them right now who are going off to, and I'm talking like they're really successful.
Yeah.
From our perspective, we would see these women as completely successful. And yet, what they're doing is they're handling everything else to put it into like automation. And then we're
Mm.
going to town on the thing that
Mm.
lights them up. And
Mm.
we'll create it as a business. And it's just magical
Oh,
watching those
yeah.
faces,
It's so
Yeah.
exciting. It's so exciting. And
Yeah.
we all know somebody, multiple people, it's like this job is sucking the life out of me.
Yeah.
And that is the opportunity to look at, where do we get to let this die so that something else can be born. And I love to tell a story. There was a woman here in Melbourne that started a business she was in love with making pretty cupcakes. And you can picture the story of the little girl that learned to make cupcakes and just fell in love with decorating them and making them really pretty. There probably wasn't anybody in her life that said that's going to be a multi-million dollar business, but she did it, and she turned it into a multi-million dollar business. And there are
Right.
so many things that, stories like that, if you look for them, of people that turned their soul calling, their love, their thing that they love doing into a very successful business. It happens. Yeah. So the other part of this story is that to know too much can make one old too soon. So in the story, there's the doll starts to bounce up and down. It's like Baba Yaga's like giving her direction to not ask another question. And Vasilisa really wants to. She wants to know what the hands in the air are, but her intuition is saying that's don't ask any more questions. And there is this knowing. We know that you can read something several times, and when the lesson needs to learn, you'll see it, and it's like, how on earth did I miss that? I've read this before. How did I not see that before? Or you hear a teaching from somebody and you can listen to it 10 times, and each time you hear something different. And it's as our knowledge goes, as we're ready, we will learn the next thing. And it's just there is a trusting in that. And perhaps, I think for me, one of my greatest lessons has been not needing to have all the answers. This podcast was case in point. Didn't know how to do it. We just recorded the first episode and then work out what to do each step of the way. And I published a book like that. I was just decided I was going to publish a book. I had no idea. Oh my goodness, the number of steps that went into doing it. But it's, if we need that desperate need to have all the answers and to know everything before we start something, is absolutely a blocker. So it is just trusting that intuitive voice that this is the next step, and take it. We don't necessarily need to have all the answers, because that will inevitably lead to some sort of overwhelm or information that we're not ready to know yet. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Inarra?
I would say this is the thing where we don't ask the questions
Mm.
that we really want to know. And
Yeah.
so those steps, the little steps, it doesn't mean you need all of it. That's the
Mm.
perfectionist
Mm.
dilemma, if you like.
Yeah.
So some of the people we know in the world of entrepreneurship, if they're perfectionists, they can't move forward without,
Mm.
they have to know everything. It's got to
Mm.
look perfect at every step of the way. Now we play with perfectionism
Yeah.
because we both have a sort of aesthetic, and I wanted the good sound, and there's various things like that. But if we had been stuck in this world because it is overwhelming, the amount of tech we've had to learn, we wouldn't have done it. We
Yeah.
would have just stayed. And then I thought one image was blurry, but that's only the way it looks recording. Actually, when it comes back, it's perfect. Every step of the way, you have this moment. But I think it's about asking the real questions. So, for instance, here's a classic: women who are testing new relationships. I'm in that
Mm.
world, and we don't ask the most important question, which is, do you feel for me what I feel for you? Do you love me? Are you committed to me? We don't ask that stuff, right? So we go around all the vague things to try and
Yeah.
force an answer. But actually, clarity is, it's not asking a gazillion questions. It's asking the one thing that you
Mm.
know that will set you straight. And so, case in point, I met somebody who I thought was just amazing a
Mm.
couple of months ago. And there was this, but he's traveling all the time.
Mm.
And the question that so I didn't know, it's a big unknown. It looks great on paper or whatever.
Yeah.
However, I finally asked the question, do you
Mm.
actually want to stay in touch while you're traveling? And he said, we should get better at this. And I thought, not we, you
Mm.
should get better at this. And so then I stopped. That's
Yeah.
it. And there's been no response, right? So when you
Mm.
ask the right question, and then
Yeah.
I'm in a phase of just feeling like, okay, well, that was all right. It was
Yeah.
all the right thing. It was great steps forward for me, but I want a committed partner and
Yeah.
I want somebody who can communicate.
Yeah.
So, like in
Yeah.
those deeper ways, we get to sit back and let things unfold. But also there are key moments where it's like, what are you really asking?
Yeah.
Don't fake it at those moments. Like really get there for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I had been, after my first husband left, I had been single with four small children for 7 years and was invited to a gathering where I knew that I was being set up to meet somebody. And he was on holiday in Australia from South Africa. And so I was like, well, what's the point? That's a bit ridiculous. Anyway, we met and he was leaving the country 3 days later and it was instant. And we spent those 3 days together. And when he left, it was devastating. And so we started to communicate back and forth. So this was something that happened in 3 days. I just want to highlight that. And so we started communicating back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. And I thought that I was messaging a girlfriend of mine. And I said, oh my gosh, I think I love him. And I sent it to him.
Oh,
So I
that's so great.
communicated that, Inara, but not on purpose.
What was the response? We need to know.
Yeah, no.
What
Well,
was the
we're
response?
married now, so
Very married. Yeah. But
yeah,
that's the stuff that women
yeah,
don't dare ask
yeah,
usually.
yeah,
And so the case in point, you're thinking that you're saying that to your girlfriend, not to him,
yeah.
and probably felt deep sense of embarrassment or
Oh my gosh,
vulnerability when,
I was
yeah,
horrified.
yeah, yeah. But boy,
I
did that
was.
open the right doors or shut the right
Yeah,
doors, right? Both of them.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
also, to bring it back to the context of this task, because I love sharing
Yeah.
stories, but that was there was a really, really dark period of 12 months when my first husband left. It was an absolute death of a picture that I had in my mind. I was very much the white picket fence and the sweetly dressed children, and I wanted my Disney family. And then suddenly he was gone, and I was unemployed, and things were ugly and messy and awful and terrible grief for a year. And then slowly but surely it was a very slow spring to summer, as over sort of 7 years of growth and things. I think it's one of the things that we get to be gentle with, is this gradual blossoming, the gradual unfurling, the gradual understanding as we start to learn more and more about ourselves. And these periods of aloneness, these periods of dark can be the most transformational. It's not, the transformations don't happen in the height of summer. Summer happens after the transformation. So I think if people can take away one thing from this life, death, life cycles, it's that we get to embrace the black as much as we do the white, and the red in the middle is absolutely magic. So yeah. I know there was one line that you loved, and I didn't want to not say it. The letting live, letting die is very important, which is just encapsulates what we talked about. All right, beautiful souls. I think that is it from this particular task. I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation, and we are excited to get back with you for the next one. We've only got 2 left after this one for the end of this season. So I hope you'll join us for that conversation. All right, beautiful souls. That's it from us for now. So much
Bye
love.
from me.
Bye for now.